Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Frank Colley. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Anthony Simpson Gilpin, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Anthony Simpson Gilpin. Anthony Gilpin, known as Son, was born in Ballarat, Victoria in 1892, the son of Alexander Gilpin, a prominent member of the Bendigo and Ballarat mining communities, and his second wife, Hannah. In 1900, his older half-brother, Alexander, was killed in action during the Boer War in South Africa. 5 years later, his father died unexpectedly during a visit to Melbourne. Shortly afterwards, Anthony Gilpin left Ballarat and went to work in Broken Hill. Anthony Gilpin travelled from Broken Hill to Adelaide to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in August 1914. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for service overseas aboard the troop ship Ascanius. Private Gilpin travelled first to Egypt, where he continued his training before being sent to Gallipoli. In the early hours of the 25th of April 1915, men of the 10th Battalion rowed silently towards the Turkish shore at what would become known as Anzac Cove. The war diary of the battalion records that no sound was heard except the splash of the oars. We thought that our landing was to be effected quite unopposed. But when our boats were within about 30 yards of the beach, a rifle was fired from the hill in front of us, above the beach, right in front of where we were heading for. Almost immediately, heavy rifle fire and machine gun fire was opened upon us. The men finished rowing to the shore and dashed for the heights above the beach. Some men of the 10th reached farthest inland that day, but had to pull back because of a lack of support. On this day, Sergeant Anthony Gilpin was killed in action. No record survives of the manner of his death. His body was never recovered, and today is commemorated on the memorial to the missing at Lone Pine. He was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Anthony Simpson Gilpin, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last toast.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. And we wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.